Mining and its history are deeply rooted in the making of the Upper Peninsula, but many might be unaware of the impacts the Underground Railroad had on the copper country. Noel Johnson was enslaved in Missouri to a William Pemberton when he and fellow freedom seeker Thomas Smith liberated themselves during the 1840s.
And they had come down the Fabius River to the Mississippi and landed just below Quincy, Illinois, and made their way through Illinois very surreptitiously. There were guns drawn, and there are some really intriguing stories, but none of the stories about Johnson's escape itself are primary sources. They were all written by newspaper reporters based on people that had known him after his death.
A slave narrative by John Brown, called A Slave Life in Georgia, indicates Brown met Johnson when Johnson arrived in Marshall, Michigan after his escape to freedom. In 1846, Brown followed a group of miners and a man named Captain Joseph Teague to Fort Wilkins near Copper Harbor. Johnson, his wife Mary Ann, and their infant son were also believed to have been taken to the Upper Peninsula during this time.
Within a couple of months, Teague's party and Brown and also Noel Johnson are receiving mail at Fort Wilkins. So I don't know for sure that Johnson came up with Teague and his party as well as with Brown, but we know that the two men had an acquaintance, had an affinity, and that they had both come to the Upper Peninsula around the same time.
Sometime after, Johnson and his family made their way to the Ontonagon area.
Johnson was exploring for copper. He was a prospector, like many of the people in the region were at the time. And he actually had some luck. He encountered a vein of copper in a bluff area, which is now known as the Mass City area, and was one of the initiators of the first copper mines in that specific location.
In 1851, Johnson filed for federal land. Before the land could be purchased, Johnson had to become legally emancipated. This meant he had to approach the estate of his former slave owner. Two Quaker men, Cyrus Mendenhall and Levi Hanna, assisted Johnson in purchasing his freedom.
And so after a while, Johnson was able to purchase his emancipation and legally be able to claim this federal land. But apparently he borrowed money from his friends to do so because, sadly, only a few years later, Johnson died in Cleveland of consumption. He's buried at the Erie Street Cemetery there. And his estate shows that it paid Cyrus Mendenhall for the cost of that freedom, which was about $250 plus interest.
After Johnson's death in 1853, his estate was eventually sold to the Mass Mining Company. To this day, Noel Johnson is credited as the founder of the Mass Mine and the reason Mass City was founded in the early 1900s. Reporting for Local 3 News, I'm Brianna McLean.